I think in my time doing this live in Fort Collins over the last 3 years or so, I've learned more about my city community than I had in the previous 33 years on this planet. While, yes, on a day-to-day operation, you get to know the area surrounding, buildings and amenities and things of that nature, but you take things for granted and you don't necessarily dive into it. Now, there's so many different programs and opportunities to learn more about Fort Collins, but it's almost kind of like you get so stuck in your day-to-day operations that you forget to grow, for lack of a better word. But since this time, and I've been watching city council, city work sessions, staying up on what's happening in Fort Collins, there's just so much great information and knowledge to learn about this wonderful community and surrounding area. Now, my name is Patrick Sugo. This is the Living in Fort Collins YouTube channel, and this is our weekly live. We come to you live every Monday at noon, and we talk to you guys about things that are happening in Fort Collins, city council reviews, and things to do on this upcoming week and weekend. So let's jump right into it. Let's see here. There is a vacant building that used to be Joann's Fabric, which then actually coincidentally Joann's Fabric is closing 500 stores nationally. The Fort Collins operation is not included in that because, and I was a little bit concerned because there's this kind of bustling little shopping center. There's these little pocket shopping centers, like Scotch Pines Village is one of my favorite pocket shopping centers. And this one along College Avenue with Joann's Fabric. And really that's the anchor store. I don't go there often, but then I forget how, kind of vibrant of an area that it is. But the building that it left had these wood shake shingles on it. It's been vacant. Actually, there used to be a watch repair company on the north side of the building. There's all these little kind of like condo units, but there have been developments that have been put in that for an 18,000 square foot grocery store. Aldi is kind of the speculation, and I had to look up who Aldi is, but it's similar to a Trader Joe's. It is a discount high-end grocery store, which is interesting because obviously King Soopers just opened up 120,000 plus square foot grocery that I was just in for the first time last week. It is beautiful. It's gorgeous. Definitely a different layout than their other stores. And in fact, some of it I wasn't a huge fan of. Like I had to go back middle of store, then head over to kind of the, produce sections and meat and things of that nature. So anyways, I'm sure I would get used to it if I went there on a day-to-day basis, which I probably won't because we have a King Soopers on the southeast side of town, which I would go to instead. But a grocery store nonetheless is under development, under review, 18,000 square foot. They would demo the building, unfortunately, but it's been vacant for a long time. How long has it been vacant? Let's see here. Does it say that? Joe, since 2011, it's been until 2011. It was basically vacant since 2011 because there was a Mitsubishi car dealership that kind of used it, I think, more as a lot than anything, not actual retail operations. They had a dealership just down the road, and I think they use that more for a lot than anything. But regardless, it's been another kind of vacant building in Fort Collins right next to First Watch. I'm sure First Watch, Dunkin' Donuts, Clean Eats that are sitting right there are hoping for good activity to happen there because with commercial, it's all about kind of convenience and proximity and anchor stores. I know a lot about commercial management and shopping centers, but not nearly as much as the professionals. And one thing that I do know is the power of having a successful restaurant retail operation near you because it will just organically bring you business. So we'll watch to see how that goes. Like I said, Joann Fabrics closing 500 plus stores. The one in Loveland is unfortunately going to be one of those stores that closes, but the Fort Collins store will remain open for now. Let's see here. There's a couple new stores. I couldn't find the information on the store that's opening up next to Ent Credit Union. Some big pink letters. So maybe a woman shopping opportunity there. Again, near kind of Michael's, a natural grocer over there, what was once Applebee's, but since has been a vacant building up for sale. Like that little, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, Title Boxing used to be there, some kid fitness class. Again, another little pocket shopping area that's really pretty nice off College Avenue. But let's see, the women's clothing store J. Jill is opening up at the Foothills Mall. And the Foothills Mall, we were just there for a movie on Friday night. I mean, there's some decent restaurants, even though they're struggling there in the mall kind of area. But the shops along College Avenue, 287, just are killing it. They're doing very well. And J. Jill will be opening up along that line of shops. And Janae was just asking me, kind of what the plans are for this development at the mall. And in the last we did have a VP on from the McQuinneys on the podcast about a year or two back that talked about what their plans were for the new mall. And it was at that point, reduction of the square footage by about 200,000 square feet, about a third of the current square footage, make it more indoor, outdoor type, open type plans. So that it's kind of been a little bit quiet, so we'll see what happens there. But not to say that there's not development there. VFLA have got their signs. It looks like it's a multi-unit, multi-use building that's being built there over by the Foothills Mall as well. So lots of activity all over the place. The power trail is closed now on South Fort Collins for the Siphon overpass. Now, I don't know, my true thoughts on the Siphon overpass is it's wasted money. And maybe there's laws that I was breaking, but when I lived on the east side of Timberline in West Chase and would want to get access to the power trail, which would be on the west side of the railroad tracks, we would sneak through Linden Park. There's a little dirt trail back there, and then we'd hop the railroad tracks. Now, maybe not safe, and maybe I'm sure Fort Collins did their research and understands how many people were doing just that. I don't know the legality of it, the safety, anything along those lines. But regardless, they're putting in this multi-million-dollar overpass kind of between Linden Park. Now is going to be the reserve at Timberline, which is built by Dreamfinders, that new development right there, and then Willow Springs. So it'll be just right behind that from the Mail Creek Trail that will connect the Mail Creek Trail over the Siphon overpass to the power trail. And the hope is to have that up and running this summer. So excited to see that. All right, now let's jump into, and make sure if you guys have any questions or comments while I'm recording this. I'm recording it now live. Feel free to ask and I will answer them live. If you're watching this on a rerun, comment down below and I will get to you as soon as I can. So our city council work session this last week was a 2-hour work session. They reviewed 4 different items. The HOPE team, which is the Homeless Outreach and Proactive Engagement team, which has been now, it was an offer in the budget and it's been approved. And so it is now in our budget moving forward, which will be a lot easier for it to retain financing in future years. From there, they're talking about the construction and demolition facility because we have a zero waste community goal by 2030. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The 2050 tax implementation for the Parks and Recreation, what projects are going to be happening and how we're putting priority and what that might look like moving forward. And then finally, and this will actually where I kind of started this afternoon's conversation about learning so much about Fort Collins and Northern Colorado and population and its desires and needs and assets. We'll jump into our impact fees realignment as well. So I will share my screen so you guys don't have to see my goofy looking face too often, or at least in a much smaller box down in the last small corner. But we'll get going with, again, so the Homeless Outreach and Proactive Engagement Team, this was a pilot program that ended up having good success. And essentially it was a group of police officers that would build relationships with community members that were experiencing homelessness in Fort Collins. And while if there was a need for them to make citations or use police activities, they would. But their hope was to, allow them to, one, maintain integrity, or not integrity, but maintain self-respect while our police officers were interacting with them, but still making sure that the community, natural areas, laws were being upheld. And so it did end up getting funding. So it's in our city budget at this time. Now, there are other opportunities because, what they said, collaborate with outreach programs. Well, when I was working in Old Town Square, there was a nonprofit, Outreach Fort Collins, that was essentially a buffer between the public and police. If it was an activity that was more a nuisance, maybe not necessarily breaking the law, you could call Outreach Fort Collins, which has operations in Midtown now and downtown Fort Collins. And these individuals would again have built relationships with these homeless individuals or transient individuals and hopefully help them either move on, relocate, understand that, hey, the next step might have to be a police officer. So let's not necessarily get there. But so there are other operations within City of Fort Collins and Fort Collins other than just police services. So there are a lot of teams and support systems for homeless in Fort Collins. Camp cleanups. So it's illegal to camp in the city limits. Now, there was something that passed, and we'll talk about that here shortly, that said if there is no room in an overnight shelter, then camping is legal. Supreme Court overturned that, but the city of Fort Collins, per their HOPE team, does not cite individuals for camping when the homeless shelter or overnight overfill shelters are full. So they are abiding by the ruling that was passed. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to be actively working to help move or take care of these individuals in that situation. This is what we were just talking about, that we couldn't impose criminal penalties for sleeping where there's no shelter space available. City of Fort Collins is going to say, you know what? No, we're going to not cite these individuals. Here's some stats for homelessness in Fort Collins per the HOPE team. Now, the calls for service and citations arrest, I'm not going to look too much at that because they didn't delineate for specific to homelessness, but referrals to Outreach Fort Collins. So they made 218 referrals to Outreach saying, hey, this isn't necessarily a police necessary situation. Why don't you guys go take care of this? Bike theft recoveries. 31, nothing. I don't know what the total number of bike thefts are in Fort Collins, but they'll go to these camps, and if there's a bike that's been reported stolen and it matches the serial numbers, they have returned 31 of those bikes in 2024. I saw one thing was like, man, each bike's $1,000 is what they're valuing these bikes at. I mean, don't get me wrong, everything's expensive. Campsites cleaned up, increased by 50. So, just under 5% increase on campsites cleaned up. Sharps cleaned up. Now, I was confused on what this meant, but what I believe this means is needles and drug use materials specifically to needles. Now, the police individual that was talking did not necessarily have a good explanation for this. And then my thought was, and I'm pretty ignorant to this, so if you have any ideas, open to hearing those, but would be that the drug of choice these days is fentanyl. And from my understanding, that's a pill. So maybe moving from a meth type of drug that did have a lot of needle usage to more of a fentanyl type drug. That would be my only guess. Don't have anything to back that up though. Let me make sure real quick. Page 13. Okay. Now, so that's kind of it. Now, now one of the things they want to make sure is, people all citizens of Fort Collins are being protected. And if you have a person that's trespassing on your land and calling the police, and if you want to specifically ask for the Hope team, you can do that. You can ask for follow-up from the Hope team. Here's Outreach Fort Collins. If you're a business owner, downtown is really probably the higher usage of Outreach Fort Collins or Midtown, saying, hey, you know what, I just got someone, they're a little bit extra today. Can you come help us out? So those are how you could connect with the Hope team in Fort Collins. Jumping into the next one, the construction and demolition facility in Fort Collins. We're going to jump to page 21. So our goal is to be a zero waste community by 2030. What this means is being none of our waste, all of our waste gets reused, recycled, or composted. And I thought this was kind of interesting. Here's how their goal is to do it. It's going to require additional infrastructure, policy actions, and behavioral changes. Behavioral changes are just going to be tough, and this goal is by 2030. I mean, we have some pretty aggressive goals, but we're working towards getting there. I wanted to skip down to, here are some major, let's see, tier 1 projects is what they're saying. The landfill opening up early 2026, which then will also have the central diversion and transfer station. The hope is that they open this up in tandem with, essentially, the landfill in Q1 of 2026, which essentially means our landfill here in Fort Collins off of Taft and Harmony is closing at the end of 2025. Now, we're talking significant, nearly $100 million worth of projects between these 3 deals: the landfill, central diversion and transfer station, and the construction and demolition processing facility. Let's see here, page 22, 25. Okay, we'll go skip down. Here's what the facility would look like. It's a 15,000 square foot facility. I thought it was crazy that they were going to be taking in 130,000 tons annually. And this is where I don't understand. The goal is to achieve a 40% or greater diversion rate. But if our goal is zero waste by 2030, and this building hasn't even been approved, and the timeline to build this would probably be at least a year and a half, 2 years out. So we're 2027 by the time this takes place. And then our goal is to achieve a 40% diversion rate. So I don't know how that, but I'm sure much smarter people than I. So let's see here. Here's what the numbers look like. The Larimer County is pursuing a $5 million grant from the state, and they're asking the city of Fort Collins to essentially cover the other $2.6 to $3.1 million. What I found interesting was they're looking at our 2050 tax dollars. So it's about a $20 million annual tax increase for the city of Fort Collins. 10 million of which will go to Parks and Recreation, which we'll talk about here shortly, 5 million to transit, and 5 million to climate. And they earmarked $1.5 million in this budget cycle that just kind of was left it didn't have a specific use, and they had that for a reason, for plans like this. So we actually have $1.5 million of the 2050 tax that's been unallocated this budget cycle and could go towards this. And city council members were pretty much all in favor, saying, hey, listen, if this gets this construction and demolition project built and they're asking for us to contribute and we've got the funds, we're not saying, yes, we're doing the full 2.6 to 3 million, but we've got the 1.5. Our inclination is to agree to this to help you get that $5 million grant. But I don't think City of Fort Collins is saying, hey, we're going to foot the entire bill for a community that, Larimer County, which also has Loveland, and other bigger areas birthed in here that use the landfill. Okay, let's get now down to 2050. Okay, I got to change my screen because I thought this was really interesting stuff to show. Okay, stop screen, present, share screen. Here we go. Share. All right, you guys should be able to see this. I will zoom in a little bit. Okay, Here it was a 2022 IRP plan, and I just kind of wanted to show this for those that are watching, different parks, sizes, priorities. Infrastructure replacement plan, IRP. What I wanted to show here, let's see here, I'm going to zoom in a little more even, and we will zoom out as we needed to. But here is the average asset score and then the number of assets. So essentially, here are some of our biggest parks in Fort Collins. We got Roland Moore, City Park, Fossil Creek Park, Spring Canyon, Twin Silo Park. But then we've also got, you know, Adora Community Park, which has got a huge skate park, Lee Martinez Community Park. I just thought that was really interesting seeing some of these bigger parks. Greenbrier, Spring Canyon. What? That's crazy. Spring Canyon is actually not one of the bigger parks. Maybe it just doesn't have a lot of assets because it's a massive park. But anyways, Overland Park, we'll scroll down. Here are some of the highest priority replacements in plan. You're going to see Roland Moore is going to get a lot of love over these coming years, especially that we've seen the 2050 tax take place. Yeah, the 2050 tax take place. So Roland Moore is going to be a big one. The tennis courts, they're super expensive. But, you know, you just see it Roland Moore all over the place. City Park's on there, English Ranch, Fossil Creek Park. But Roland Moore is going to get a lot of love over the coming years in the tunes of millions of dollars. I want to skip down to, again, some more cool information. So this is our park size in acres. So what's crazy is, look at this. That's what I'm saying. Spring Canyon is a massive park, but our assets are actually pretty small from what we saw earlier. Again, our biggest park archery, our archery range. Wow, that's kind of crazy that that's one of our biggest areas. That's off of I-25. City Park, Fossil Creek Park, Adora Community Park, Lee Martinez, Roland Moore, Spring Canyon, and Twin Silo. But here's some other ones. Here's where I grew up, Warren Park. A pretty decent sized area over there. Troutman Park, again, a good one where you can go get some fishing in over in the ponds. I just thought it was really cool to see park size and asset count. And we're going to keep moving down because I just think there's some really interesting information here. We have, let's see here, pump house. Maybe that's, okay, cool. We have 29 full court basketball courts. Now, granted, this was, again, as of 2022. So this doesn't have updated information between 2022 and 2023. 46 tennis courts. What you don't see on here is pickleball courts. And they could have 12 pickleball courts coming up. Or no, seriously, there's 2 pickleball courts right here. Because Twin Silo Park. That's right. They do have 12 pickleball courts slated to come in probably in the tune of $3 to $4 million, whether that be at Fossil Creek Park or at Spring Canyon Park coming up. But I just thought it was really interesting to see, you know, horseshoe pits, tennis courts, lots of obviously basketball courts and tennis courts. We have 39 ball fields. I wanted to skip down to, okay, we have, 8 community parks, 28 pocket parks. We have 46 playgrounds in Fort Collins. And I thought this was interesting too. 5 skate parks in Fort Collins and 4 dog parks. And then the final page I wanted to show you guys is right here. Okay, I'll have to zoom out a little bit. This is just kind of a cool overhaul of what is all in Fort Collins. $280 per capita spending. I'll talk to you guys about that. That's our capital expansion fee included in there. 100,000 annual volunteer hours, 50 parks, 45 miles of paved trails. Just a lot of cool. 45,000 flowers planted annually. Looks like we have 45 pickleball courts. Those aren't dedicated pickleball courts. Those are combo of tennis courts and things of that nature. Ice arenas, outdoor pools, indoor pools. We have 1 farm, 3 gymnasiums, there's just a lot of cool stats on here. So, but I'm going to jump into page 39, 20. Okay, yeah, now we'll jump back into the presentation. Present, share screen. Okay. And that will be page 38. Let me get to 38. All right, so what they wanted to talk about was how are we going to use this 80%? And the 80% is of the $10 million that the city of Fort Collins is going to get annually for parks and recreation, 20% is going to go to the replacement and construction of indoor and outdoor recreation and pool facilities, specifically really the Mulberry Pool and Southeast Community Center. So they're going to be, getting essentially $2 million per year for the construction and updates of these facilities. But 80% is going towards the replacement and update of these facilities and assets. We're going to get to on our impact fees realignment. We're talking $200 to $300 million worth of park assets when you talk into consideration the actual assets and the park size. It's a lot. It's a big asset for the city of Fort Collins, and we approved in 2023. Yes, 2023. That in 2024 we were going to allow a 0.5-cent sales tax for the citizens of Fort Collins because we had a shortfall in maintenance dollars for our parks, which is such a huge benefit and asset to those in and around Fort Collins. Again, just some more stats for you guys: 10 rec facilities, 55 parks, 4 pools, 1 indoor, 3 outdoor, 1 outdoor, 3 indoor. 37 years is the average age of a Fort Collins park. I thought that was pretty crazy now because you got, Twin Silo, Fossil Creek, and Spring Canyon, kind of the newer parks, but then you got obviously Roland Moore, Edora, City Park that average out those age to 37 years. They're saying 1 million plus people use our parks annually. I thought that's pretty cool. All right, and then I wanted to get to page 44 through 46. Oh, kids are coming down here, so sorry if you guys. Here's some examples of some of the updates that they've done. E. Martinez Community Park before and after. Here's one of the parks that they're saying needs redone. It's one of their higher priorities, the Landings Park. Aged infrastructure, ADA, xeriscape, instead of sand, having kind of a, not a hardscape, I guess you'd say, but a different material. And then here's an update. Here's one of the newest parks in Fort Collins, our Sugar Beet Park. It's a smaller park, but it's a lot of fun. I actually went here with some clients for a baby shower. This over here is really kind of a fun zip line. There's a big spinny thing where kids fling off of, but it's a lot of fun. And that's where we're going to be spending money on our parks and recreation, with $10 million, $8 million a year going to operations and maintenance. All right, now jumping into our impact fees in Fort Collins. Let's see here, page 59. Now, I just want to go through some stats more than anything for here just real quickly that talks to you guys a little bit about Fort Collins. I get these questions asked a lot, specifically like how many homes are rentals? What are how many acres of parks and different things of that nature. So I wanted to just go through real quick on different stats in Fort Collins. So this is our current capital expansion fees. So to build a house over 2,200 square feet, just in capital expansion fees, it's going to cost you $19,000. And what they wanted to understand is like, hey, everything increased in cost. How can we make sure that we're not having a shortfall like we did on our parks? They're going to have to come back in future years and ask for the citizens to make up because we've under budgeted what we need. 66 to 67. Okay, this is the service population of Fort Collins. So we have 174,000 people as of 2023, but we have 29,000 people coming in on a daily basis, meaning that we need to service 203,000 people a day in Fort Collins on our roads and capital projects and things of that nature. Just thought that was kind of an interesting number, saying that there's 30,000 people commuting into Fort Collins on a daily basis for a total of 107,000 jobs in Fort Collins. 67. What did I want to show here? Population. Oh, what I wanted to show on this one was our non-working residents. We have 52% of people in Fort Collins not working. Only 48% of our population is working. I don't know what historic numbers are, but you take this 83,000 people that work in Fort Collins, and that just a lot of people. We're an aging demographic, but we've obviously got students, we got kids, retired individuals. I just thought it was an interesting number that 52% of our population in Fort Collins of the 174 does not work. Let's see here. Here's the cost of our parks, number 70. So $200 to $350 million. Well, it's actually, you can combine those because it's over $500,000 of park assets. When you look into neighborhood parks and community parks, cost per acre, development cost per acre, and it gets you to over $500 million, nearly, or over $600 million even, in parks in Fort Collins. And what they're trying to do is saying, hey, like and they're pushing the cost onto new development. So they're not coming back to our residents and saying, hey, your part, well, I mean, I guess there's money. However they get their money, they just need a specific amount because it can be done through taxes, impact fees, billings, utility fees, lots of different ways to do it. But I just thought overall $600 million worth of parks in Fort Collins. Page 81. Oh, okay. Here's the growth of Fort Collins between 2017 and 2023. Let's see here. Specifically, really, I wanted to more focus on this than anything. But our neighborhood parks, we pumped a ton of money into neighborhood parks. Over doubled our neighborhood park size and assets over the last 6 years. Well, now it's, again, these are only updated to 2023. Community parks, still a pretty decent up increase, 24%. Poudre Fire Authority, they have significantly increased their budget. And then our police as well, and our general government. Overall, City of Fort Collins has grown quite a bit in regards to our assets and expenditures by about 74%. And we need to, and again, what the conversation is here is, okay, so our expenses have increased by 74%, but has our impact fees increased in tandem with that so that we can maintain our level of service? One of the big conversation pieces, level of service, so that when people move to Fort Collins, it doesn't degrade, that the level of service, what they expect it to, or the people living in Fort Collins still maintain that level of service. Let's see here, 98. Oh, here is just how many road miles we need in the next 10 years in Fort Collins based off of some of our projections. We are going to need another 61 miles, but some of these are lanes attributed to external trips. So essentially 58 miles additional road lanes, which equates to $242 per vehicle mile traveled. And here's the cost per lane mile. $2 million per lane mile is what it costs to build a mile of road in Fort Collins. 107 households. How many households are in Fort Collins? Well, there's about 67,000 households and housing units, 70,000 housing units in Fort Collins, of which a good majority of those are single family, but our permits that are being pulled are skewing towards multifamily. More multifamily permits are being pulled between 2020 and 2023 than single family. So a bigger focus on density in Fort Collins and Northern Colorado. 109 population and housing units. Here are some of the expected increases. Now, I feel like, they were talking about some assumptions going in here because a big push is a move towards active modes transportation. And I think this is also a number that we need to look at because over the last few years, our population's actually been relatively flat. And here they're suggesting a 1.5% increase, 1.5% increase in our population annually over the next 10 years to get us 32,000 people increase over the next 10 years. I don't know if we're going to see that. We're seeing a lot of growth in Northern Colorado, surrounding areas like Windsor, Timnath, Loveland, Wellington, Berthoud, Bellevue, LaPorte, all these surrounding areas. But Fort Collins has been relatively flat over the last few years. So I wonder if some of these assumptions need to get looked at pretty seriously. But then again, here's what our housing unit looks like. It's going to move up to 87,000 in the next 10 years, an increase of 15,000 housing units over the next 10 years. Let's see here. Jobs projections, 112. I just thought this was interesting to look at our jobs. They're suggesting that, and again, this is also interesting to look at. I know there's a big push to get people back into work, but right now, the majority of our jobs in Fort Collins are office. Just under 50% are office jobs in Fort Collins. And then we got a mixture between industrial, institutional, and retail. But they're suggesting that the fastest growing sector of that is going to be also on the job side of things. Well, this is actually, I guess you could say, fastest growing as far as numbers, not necessarily percentage, because percentage-wise, I believe institutional will look like it's going to have the largest increase as a number percentage-wise, because it's less than 10%, and that's just at 10%. So regardless, I thought it was an interesting looking to see where are Fort Collins jobs, what's the allocation? And it looks like a majority of them are office jobs with projections to increase. Renter versus owner occupied. Specifically looking at, single family houses, about 75% of single family houses are owner occupied versus renter occupied. But then you get to multifamily, and the majority of our multifamily collection is renter occupied. So when somebody asks, if there's a lot of rentals in the area, well, each neighborhood's a little bit different, but assume 75% of homes are owner occupied, 25% are renter occupied. Okay, now let's get down to our slides. Here is kind of the crux of the discussion that was happening at City of Fort Collins. Work session was, they were wanting to know what our level of service, our fee allocation, and growth appointment. Our level of service, should roads be as wide as they are? Should we have as many roads? Should we have as many future parks that we do? These are some of our levels of service inputs. And as you saw, between 2017 and 2023, our neighborhood parks, over doubled on the assets that they have. So are we wanting to have fewer neighborhood parks, fewer sidewalks, fewer trails to decrease these impact fees? Then on top of that, one thing that I didn't really show you guys, I can show it to you right here. Right here is where this, our fee allocation, it starts at 700 feet and goes up to 2,200 square feet. So a house that's built that has 5,000 square feet is getting charged the same amount as a house that's 2,201 square feet. And what they want to know is, should we make those adjustments? We've got bigger houses than we used to, so should we update that and maybe offset some of those? I think that's probably the clearest answer that I've seen is, the larger houses should probably bear a little, at least up to a certain point. Now, of course, it's like when we go to price houses with clients, a lot of the conversation is, well, like the land costs, the utility fees, impact fees, to a certain degree are no different for a house that's 1,000 square feet than a house that's 3,000 square feet. But then obviously the cost of construction at that point, the bathroom expense, the floor, the area, the 2-story versus ranch, all of those things. So I do think there's an opportunity to increase that from 2,200 square feet, maybe to 2,500 or 3,000 square feet, have a category for that. So I think there might be some opportunity there. How things are getting paid. New growth is paying the entire proportional share. So lots of things to consider, which then would lead us to what does the future look like? Right now, we've pretty much just done inflationary updates since 2017. And what they're wanting to do is a pretty steep update for 2026 so that moving forward, we can just do inflationary updates. But right now, it says that we have about $2 million. Where does it say this? $2 million annually, or $2 million shortfall right here. From our proposed fees versus what our inflationary update's going to be. So we have a $2 million shortfall to maintain our current level of service. And that was what the conversation at City Council was all about. Now, there's not much going on this week. Last week was Valentine's Day. My wife and I, we had a great time. We did what I called a tour, a history of us. And we went to CSU and went to Chili's because that's where one of the first times that I made her laugh was. And then we went to a movie because movies were important to us. And we're not a bougie couple. So that was really enjoyable. But this week I don't have much going on. It's gonna be cold again this week, but we do see 60s and 65s in the temperature forecast for next week. The state of the city is on February 24th at 4 p.m. at the Lincoln Center. So if you are interested, you can go check out Mayor Arndt and Kelly DiMartino talk about that. But that is live in Fort Collins. And I don't see any questions at this time. So I will leave you guys with that. Now, one thing, if you guys subscribe to our newsletter, I would love to have you guys on there. We've had some great feedback. Lots of stats, information, ways to connect, get involved. But I appreciate you guys watching on a weekly basis. And have a great rest of your day. Take care.